You opened your eyes this morning and felt it again, that familiar weight pressing against your chest, the knowing that something is wrong with how you see the world. You look at the people around you, at the conversations happening, at the smiles being exchanged, and you see beneath them. You see the performance. You see the lies people tell themselves. You see the desperation hidden behind confidence. You see the emptiness masked by busyness, and you know, with a certainty that aches in your bones, that no one else is seeing what you see. They move through their days in a kind of waking sleep, comfortable in their illusions, while you stand on the outside looking in, unable to unsee what you have seen. And here is what hurts most. They do not thank you for seeing clearly. They do not welcome your perspective. They do not ask you to share what you have discovered about the nature of things. Instead, they pull away from you. They call you negative, cynical, too intense, too much. They tell you that you think too deeply, that you should lighten up, that you are making problems where none exist. And sometimes, when you dare to speak what you see, they do not just withdraw, they attack. They accuse you of being judgmental, of creating drama, of projecting your own darkness onto them. They make you feel as though your clarity is a sickness, your depth is a defect, your honesty is a weapon you are wielding against them. And so you learn to stay quiet. You learn to hide what you see. You learn to perform alongside everyone else, pretending not to notice what is so painfully obvious. But the performance exhausts you. The silence suffocates you, and you begin to wonder if there is something fundamentally wrong with you, if your ability to see beneath surfaces is not a gift, but a curse, if you are destined to live forever on the outside of human connection, watching but never belonging. But what if I told you that what you are experiencing is not your failure? What if the hatred you feel from the world when you see too deeply is not evidence that you are broken, but evidence that you are awake? What if Dostoevsky, who spent his life exploring the darkest corners of the human soul, understood exactly what is happening to you and why the world reacts to clear vision with such violence? Let me explain what he discovered about people who see too much, about why the world despises them, and about what this hatred actually reveals about the nature of truth itself. You are not too negative for seeing what others refuse to see. You are not too critical for noticing what others choose to ignore. You are not too intense for feeling the weight of realities that others have learned to push away. Dostoevsky understood that the person who sees deeply is not sick. They are simply awake in a world that is asleep, and the sleeping world does not love those who try to wake them. It despises them. It attacks them. It punishes them for holding up a mirror to truths that were easier to live with when they remained hidden. You have committed no crime except the crime of seeing clearly. You have done nothing wrong except refusing to participate in the collective delusion. And the world hates you for it, because your existence reminds everyone else of what they are working so hard to avoid. Your clarity is not your weakness, it is your authenticity. And authenticity, Dostoevsky knew, is the most dangerous thing you can bring into a world built on performance and pretense. Dostoevsky spent his entire life writing about people like you, people who saw too much, people who could not participate in the comfortable lies that society agreed to believe. People who stood on the outside, looking in, watching the machinery of human self-deception with growing horror and growing isolation. In Notes from Underground, he created the Underground Man, a character so painfully aware of human hypocrisy, so unable to pretend he did not see it, that he became paralyzed by his own consciousness. In Crime and Punishment, he gave us Raskolnikov, a young man whose ability to see beyond conventional morality led him into a darkness that nearly destroyed him. In The Brothers Karamazov, he showed us Ivan, whose intellectual clarity about the suffering of the world drove him to the edge of madness. These characters were not villains. They were people whose consciousness exceeded what their society could tolerate. They saw what others refused to see, and that vision isolated them, tortured them, and ultimately transformed them in ways that those who remained asleep could never understand. Dostoevsky was writing about what happens when you cannot close your eyes to truth. He was describing the price of seeing clearly in a world that prefers blindness. And here is what he discovered. The world does not hate you because you are wrong. The world hates you because you are right. And being right about uncomfortable truths is the most unforgivable thing you can be. But why does the world respond to deep vision with such hostility? Dostoevsky understood that this hatred is not random. It follows a pattern. It emerges from something buried deep in human psychology, something most people never examine, because examining it would require facing exactly the kind of truth you have already seen. When you look at someone and see beneath their mask, when you sense the fear they are hiding, the pain they are denying, the lies they are telling themselves, you become dangerous to them in a very specific way. You become a mirror, and human beings, Dostoevsky observed, hate mirrors, not the kind of mirror that reflects their physical appearance, which they can control with careful grooming and the right lighting. They hate the psychological mirror, the person who reflects back to them the truth of what they actually are beneath all the performance. When you look at someone with clear eyes and see their desperation, their emptiness, their fear, something in them recognizes that you see it, even if you say nothing, even if you never speak the truth aloud. They feel it. They sense that you know, and that knowing threatens the entire structure they have built to protect themselves from self-awareness. So they react, not with gratitude for your insight, not with curiosity about what you have seen. They react with defense, with attack, with rejection, because to acknowledge that you see the truth would mean they would have to see it too. And they have spent years, sometimes entire lifetimes, building walls to avoid seeing exactly what you perceive so effortlessly. Dostoevsky called this shadow projection, the mechanism by which people unconsciously attack others for reflecting qualities they refuse to acknowledge in themselves. When someone calls you negative, what they are really saying is that you're making them aware of negativity they carry but do not want to face. When someone says you are too intense, what they mean is that your depth is showing them how shallow they have allowed themselves to become. When someone accuses you of creating problems, what they cannot admit is that you are simply noticing problems that already exist. Problems they have agreed to pretend are not there. The world punishes you not for being wrong, but for being a reminder of what it is trying to forget. You walk into a room and people feel exposed even when you say nothing. You exist, and your existence becomes an accusation they never asked to hear. This is why they push you away. This is why they call you difficult. This is why they would rather you disappear than continue reflecting truths they cannot bear to acknowledge. Dostoevsky saw this pattern everywhere in human relationships, in families where the truth teller becomes the scapegoat, in societies where the prophet is exiled or killed, in friendships where the person who sees clearly is eventually abandoned for being too uncomfortable to be around. The pattern repeats because it serves a function. By casting out the one who sees, the group can maintain its collective blindness. By silencing the mirror, everyone else can continue their performance undisturbed. And here is where Dostoevsky's understanding becomes even more profound. He recognized that this rejection is not just social, it is existential. When you see deeply, you threaten not just individual egos, but the entire framework of meaning that people use to navigate their lives. Most people, Dostoevsky observed, live according to comfortable stories they tell themselves. Stories about who they are, about why they do what they do, about the goodness of their intentions and the justification of their choices. These stories may not be true, but they are comforting. They allow people to sleep at night. They provide a sense of order and righteousness. They make life feel manageable. Then you arrive with your clear vision, and your vision shows that the stories do not hold up. The righteous father is revealed as controlling and afraid. The successful professional is shown to be running from something they cannot name. The happy couple is exposed as two people performing happiness while drowning in private despair. You do not need to say these things aloud for them to be felt. Your presence alone, your refusal to participate in the collective fiction, creates a crack in the carefully maintained narrative. And through that crack, uncomfortable truths begin to seep in. The world cannot tolerate this, so it must eliminate the source of the disruption. It must cast out the one whose seeing threatens everyone else's unseeing. This is why loneliness becomes the constant companion of those who see deeply. Dostoevsky knew this loneliness intimately. He felt it in prison camps, where his sensitivity to human suffering made him an outsider, even among outcasts. He felt it in his writing, where his attempts to illuminate the human condition were often met with confusion, hostility, or worse, with being ignored. He felt it in relationships where his psychological penetration made others uncomfortable. And he described it through his characters, who wander through crowds feeling more alone than if they were standing in empty rooms. The underground man speaks of feeling like a mouse in a corner, seeing everything but unable to connect with anyone. Raskolnikov moves through St. Petersburg, surrounded by people, but utterly isolated by his awareness. Ivan Karamazov sits in conversation, unable to bridge the gap between what he knows and what others can hear. This loneliness is not the result of being unlikable. It is the price of seeing what others will not see. When your consciousness operates at a depth that exceeds the collective comfort zone, you live in a different world than those around you. You are watching a different movie. You're hearing music that others experience as silence, and no amount of trying to explain what you perceive can bridge that gap, because the gap is not intellectual. It is existential. You are awake, and they are asleep, and the sleeping do not forgive those who try to wake them. But Dostoevsky did not leave his truth seers abandoned in their isolation. He discovered something else, something that transforms this curse into something bearable and eventually into something sacred. He found that the person who sees deeply is not just witnessing truth, they are becoming truth. The isolation you feel is not punishment, it is transformation. You are being refined by what you see. You are being stripped of comfortable illusions. You are being forced into a confrontation with reality that most people never face. And that confrontation, painful as it is making you more real, more authentic, more whole. Dostoevsky believed that suffering, when faced consciously, purifies the soul, not in a religious sense necessarily, but in a psychological one. When you cannot hide from what is true, when you cannot pretend away the darkness you perceive, you must either break under the weight of that seeing, or you must grow strong enough to carry it. Most people never face this choice because they never allow themselves to see deeply enough to require it. They live their entire lives in comfortable half-truths, protected by denial, sustained by distraction. But you do not have that option anymore. You have seen too much. You know too much. And so you must find a way to live with what you know. And in learning to live with it, something extraordinary happens. You stop needing the validation of those who refuse to see. You stop measuring your worth by whether the sleeping world accepts you. You begin to recognize that your isolation is not evidence of your failure, but evidence of your courage to remain awake when sleeping would be easier. This shift is what Dostoevsky called redemption through suffering, not suffering for its own sake, but suffering that leads somewhere, suffering that transforms. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov spends most of the novel trapped in the hell of his own consciousness, tormented by what he has done and what he has seen about human nature. But in the final pages, through accepting his guilt, through allowing himself to be fully seen by Sonia, who loves him anyway, he begins to find a path toward wholeness. The path does not erase what he knows. It integrates it. It makes him capable of holding the truth without being destroyed by it. This is what is available to you. Not a return to blindness, not a way back to comfortable ignorance, but a way forward into a kind of seeing that includes compassion, a way of holding truth that does not require you to weaponize it, a way of living with depth that allows for connection even when others cannot meet you at your level of awareness. Dostoevsky showed that the person who sees deeply can choose one of two paths. They can become bitter, using their vision to judge and condemn everyone who does not see as they do. Or they can become wise, using their vision to understand human limitation with compassion. The first path leads to the underground man, paralyzed by his own superiority and awareness. The second path leads to Prince Mishkin in The Idiot, who sees everything, including the darkness in human hearts, but responds with love rather than judgment. Mishkin is destroyed by the world precisely because he refuses to use his awareness as a weapon. But in that destruction, he remains whole in a way that those who hurt him never achieve. This is the paradox Dostoevsky offered. The world will hate you for seeing deeply, but your choice is whether that hatred makes you hard or makes you human. The path forward is not easy. Dostoevsky never promised easy paths. He promised true paths, and the true path for those who see too much begins with acceptance, not acceptance of the world's blindness, but acceptance of your own vision. You must stop apologizing for seeing what you see. Stop trying to unsee it. Stop pretending to be less aware than you are in order to make others comfortable. Your clarity is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be honored. Even when it isolates you, even when it hurts, the world's hatred of your vision says nothing about the validity of what you see. It says everything about the world's fear of truth. So the first step is to stand in your seeing without apology. The second step is to find the few. Dostoevsky knew that the deeply seeing person would never find acceptance among the many, but they might find recognition among the few. There are others who see what you see. There are others who have been cast out for their clarity. There are others who live on the outside looking in, carrying truths the world refuses to acknowledge. These people are rare, but they exist. And when you find them, the loneliness transforms into something different, not belonging to the crowd, but belonging to the truth, not being understood by everyone, but being deeply known by a few. Dostoevsky himself found these connections, fellow writers, fellow sufferers, fellow seekers who could hold the depth of what he perceived without flinching. These relationships sustained him through exile, through poverty, through the constant rejection of a world that did not want to hear what he had to say. You may not find many of these connections, but you need only a few. One person who sees what you see is worth more than 1,000 who demand you stop seeing. The third step is to create. Dostoevsky did not just suffer his vision, he transformed it into art. He poured what he saw into characters and stories that allowed others, even those who initially resisted, to eventually encounter truths they could not face directly. Your creation may not be novels, but it must be something, some way of taking what you see and giving it form, some way of honoring the truth you carry by expressing it. Writing, art, music, conversation, teaching, whatever medium allows you to externalize what you perceive. Creation is how you prevent your vision from becoming poison. When you hold truths inside with no outlet, they fester, they turn toxic, they eat you from within. But when you give them form, even if no one receives them, you release their hold on you. You transform seeing into making, and in that transformation, you reclaim your power. You are no longer just a victim of your awareness. You become an artist of it. This is what separates the underground man from Dostoevsky himself. The underground man hoards his bitter insights, letting them corrode his soul. Dostoevsky shares his, letting them become medicine for others, even when that medicine tastes bitter. And finally, you must learn to live with the hatred without letting it define you. The world will continue to hate what you see. People will continue to pull away when you get too close to their carefully protected lies. You will continue to be called too much, too negative, too intense. This will not stop, but it does not have to destroy you. Dostoevsky learned to wear the world's rejection as confirmation rather than condemnation. When people attacked him for his ideas, he knew he had touched something real. When critics dismissed his work, he understood he had revealed something they preferred to keep hidden. When readers turned away from his darkness, he recognized that darkness was what they most needed to face. You can adopt the same perspective. Every time someone tells you to stop seeing so deeply, you can hear it as proof that you are seeing truly. Every time someone calls you difficult for refusing to participate in comfortable fictions, you can recognize it as validation that you are living authentically. The world's hatred of your vision is not a judgment of your worth. It is a measure of how far you have moved from collective delusion toward individual truth. And that distance, painful as it makes your relationships, is sacred. You are not meant to be loved by everyone. Dostoevsky was not loved by everyone. He was dismissed, mocked, misunderstood, and frequently alone. But he was also profound. He was also true. He was also one of the few voices in human history who saw all the way down to the bottom of human nature and reported back what he found there without flinching. You are part of that lineage. You are one of the ones who see, and the world will hate you for it because the world hates mirrors. But your task is not to be loved by the world. Your task is to remain true to what you see, to honor your vision even when it costs you connection, to stand in your awareness even when it leaves you standing alone. Because truth bearers have always been lonely. Prophets have always been rejected. Those who see deeply have always been cast out. This is not new. This is the ancient pattern, and you are living it. Not because you are broken, but because you are awake. If you recognize yourself in this, if you have felt the world's hatred for your seeing, I want you to know something. You are not imagining it. The hostility is real. The rejection is real. The isolation is real. But so is the truth you carry. So is the depth you possess. So is the transformation happening within you, whether you can see it yet or not. Share in the comments which of Dostoevsky's insights resonated most deeply with your experience of being rejected for seeing too much. Your words might reach someone else who needs to know they are not alone in this. If you want to continue exploring these depths, subscribe for more reflections on the cost and the gift of seeing what others refuse to see. And if you're ready to understand more about how to live with this kind of awareness without being destroyed by it, watch the next video where we explore Dostoevsky's teaching on transforming suffering into strength. Thank you for your courage to see clearly. Thank you for refusing to close your eyes even when the world demands it. You are exactly what truth looks like in a world that prefers illusion. And that makes you rare. That makes you valuable. That makes you necessary, even when it makes you hated.